Every year, over £21 billion is stolen from the UK's public purse. Money that's meant to treat our sick, educate our children and keep us safe. Alongside crack teams of investigators.
This guy's got to be stopped as soon as possible.
She had defrauded the NHS.
We're tracking down the fraudsters, stealing our public money.
This man had effectively treated the NHS like a cash machine.
Locking them up.
They were going to be spending a lot of their time inside a prison cell.
And getting the cash back where it belongs.
We recovered close to £1 million.
She was ordered to pay just under £1.4 million.
I'm after his house, his car and some money.
Just over £23,000 back into the public purse.
Fraud Squad, the hunt is on. Today, a hospital IT support worker supports himself by shamelessly stealing computers from the NHS.
The computers were expensive items of kit that were quite difficult to replace. He'd sold approximately 60 computers over a period of around 4 years.
A gang fraudulently fly tip on an industrial scale, dumping tons of rubble and creating a haystack of household waste that costs thousands to clean up.
The residents reported foul odours coming from the site. There was around 2,000 bales of material on site.
And a father and son commit an audacious building fraud that allows them to live a life of luxury, paid for by the public purse.
£14 million worth of new builds were being alleged to have been built, yet not one brick had been laid. It was a scam from start to finish.
Every penny counts in the NHS. With around 65 million people in the UK, that's a lot of patients to look after. One man looked at the cash-strapped NHS and saw an opportunity to make a few extra £1,000 for himself. A hospital IT support worker is stealing NHS equipment, ruthlessly exploiting a system built on trust.
They conducted physical visits to the sites where these computers had supposedly been installed and found either reconditioned or refurbished computers, or no computer had been installed at all.
He's taking a huge bite out of NHS funds, flogging their computers online and raking in thousands.
They were ultimately funded by public money through the Health Board.
But the police have been alerted to his scam. They want to get the evidence that will cause this computer criminal to crash. Wrexham, North Wales. Detective Sergeant Adam Williams and the CID team at North Wales Police are called by one of the managers at Maylor, the district's general hospital.
They were basically reporting that they'd had anonymous information suggesting that a member of staff within the IT department of the hospital was stealing equipment. They'd verified that a number of items of hardware were missing from the supplies. Quite a serious allegation.
The hospital, like any other large organisation, has an extensive inventory of IT equipment, which is crucial to providing patient services. But somebody obviously doesn't care about that.
The items identified that were going missing at the time was a large amount of computer hardware, so your towers, desktop PCs and laptop computers.
And they don't come cheap. The computers cost between £500 and £1,000 each.
These were brand new pieces of computer hardware. They were basically allocated out from the IT department to staff within the hospital. They were quite difficult to replace. They were ultimately funded by public money through the Health Board.
With so many people going in and out of its doors, the hospital has its own dedicated police presence.
An officer of ours based at the hospital conducted some initial inquiries. From speaking to the managers, it became quite clear that one of the staff members within the IT department was believed to be responsible, but at that moment they couldn't figure out who it was.
The IT department regularly purchases new equipment. The problem is, the system overseeing its distribution is based on trust. A large team of IT support staff respond to jobs, going round the hospital replacing old or broken equipment as required. Somebody is breaking that trust, but there's no way to confirm who took what, where and when.
We couldn't identify a suspect in the case. The investigation hit a brick wall at that point. After that initial investigation, and the matter was left with the counter-fraud at the NHS to make further inquiries.
The case stagnates, but resigned to the fact they may never find out who's stolen their computers, the IT department changed their procedures, so at least it can't happen again.
So every time a computer came in, it was assigned a tracking number so they could see that it was operating on the hospital network and that it was in use. Those changes that they made would allow them to identify if any computer was to go missing and where it was supposed to be.
Months pass and there are no more offences. It's all quiet. Until...
About 6 months later, we received further information from the NHS counter-fraud officers that they believed they knew who the suspect was.
The chief suspect is a long-serving, popular member of staff in a position of trust.
He had been an employee at the hospital for 8 years. He was a member of the desktop support team within the IT department, and he was responsible for allocating computer hardware and installing them within the departments within the hospital.
Crucially, the IT worker has only just returned to work after a period of long-term sick leave.
So he was unaware of the changes that were made to the procedures within the hospital.
Strangely enough, when he returns, the suspicious goings-on start again.
An IT engineer within the department raised concerns with his manager around the allocation of a piece of computer hardware.
The engineer's expecting a new computer. Instead, he finds an old one in its place. The new system shows that the computer that was supposed to be there was last in the hands of the suspect, and its whereabouts is currently unknown.
At that point, the staff responsible for the investigation within the IT department conducted an audit of the suspect's recent activity since his return to work.
And they immediately call Adam and the team at CID.
This is the site at Wrexham Hospital. We visited on numerous occasions as part of the investigation to speak with managers within the IT department. We established that 7 computers had been identified as missing as part of an internal audit, and this kick-started our police investigation.
The new audit system shows that the suspect was responsible for distributing the now missing computers.
This is a copy of the IT service point log that we received from staff at the hospital. It basically shows a request from a member of staff who's experiencing issues with their computer. It then shows the unit that's allocated for it to be replaced with. We can see that this job's been signed off by the suspect, who's updated it to say that the PC has been replaced.
But it hasn't, and the suspect's IT colleagues are shocked to discover that neither have any of the other 6 he was allocated.
They conducted visits to the sites where these computers had supposedly been installed and found that either reconditioned or refurbished computers had been installed, or no computer had been installed at all.
The hospital's NHS counter-fraud officers and the police go back further, sifting through the IT worker's paper trail over the previous years for computers he's supposedly replaced. They start interviewing staff to see if these are fact or fiction.
This is a statement from the staff member. This witness says that she's had the same computer for about the last 5 years. She has no recollection of her computer being replaced, and as far as she's aware, no one's contacted IT to request it.
This contradicts what's on the IT worker's report that says she's been given a new one.
For me, this tells me that the suspect is using this system to disguise his activity.
With so many brand new computers potentially unaccounted for, the hospital immediately suspend the IT worker on suspicion of gross misconduct.
Some of the staff we spoke to knew the suspect professionally. He was a trusted colleague, and they were clearly quite shocked. They couldn't believe he was capable of such a thing.
Later, as they close in on their suspect, Adam and the CID team uncover the astonishing scale of his fraud.
It became quite clear that he'd sold approximately 60 computers over a period of around 4 years.
Dumping a mattress, an old TV or a bin bag full of rubbish in the street not only causes a nuisance, but it costs local authorities in England over £55 million a year, money that could be used to build 2 brand new secondary schools. In North and East London, a brazen gang take fly tipping to a whole new level.
We had reports that vehicles were going into this site full of waste and coming back out the site empty.
Illegally dumping tons of rubbish, they leave a nasty trail, threatening wildlife and the health of the community.
We concluded there was around 2,000 bales of material on site.
This gang go to extreme lengths to conceal their crimes.
And there was a piece of machinery on site known as a 360, which was burying the material underground and moving the waste around the site.
But hot on their heels is Environment Officer Emma Viner, who will leave no stone unturned in her quest to dump this grubby gang in jail. Barking, East London. One of the local council's CCTV cameras catches 3 men with an articulated tipper truck acting suspiciously on this patch of land. They appear to be indiscriminately dumping a huge truckload of trash in this green space. The police are called, and the 3 suspects at the scene are taken in for questioning. But the case is complicated by the fact they've been found on private land. The men claim they're mechanics on site fixing a lorry. The police don't have enough to hold them or charge them, so they're released on bail. But the police sense something fishy is going on and call in specialist Emma Viner from the Environment Agency to investigate.
Illegal waste dumping is becoming more of a problem across the UK. We've had a lot of more organised criminality in the waste sector, and that's something the Environment Agency's taking tough action to deal with.
Emma has 12 years' experience of battling fly tippers, so she can spot them a mile off, especially when they're this conspicuous.
The CCTV footage showed a large red lorry with "Hire Me" written on the side arrive at the site and then brazenly dump the waste.
When Environment Agency investigators visit the site at Choates Road, it's clear the men certainly don't have permission to be there.
So there was a padlock on the gate, and the gate had been cut, and that's how access had been gained.
They've broken in, and what they've left behind is shocking.
We saw several large tipper loads of waste, lots of different mixed material.
Uncontrolled fly tipping can be dangerous, especially if the waste contains toxic materials like asbestos or chemicals which can get into the soil and watercourses, poisoning and killing wildlife, and in some severe cases, even making the local community sick. Emma and her team need to gather evidence to see what sort of waste has been dumped and look for clues that will help trace the rubbish back to where it came from.
This is Choates Road in Barking. This is where our officers search through the waste to try and identify anything traceable to help us establish how it might have ended up here.
The piles here are found to be a mixture of household waste, textiles and wood. Emma suspects these fly tippers are fraudulently posing as a legitimate refuse company and getting paid to clear away trade waste. This can be very lucrative, but is illegal without the right licenses.
There's significant financial benefit in illegal dumping. To dispose of waste legally at a permitted site, you would pay landfill tax, gate fees, so you can save quite substantial sums of money for depositing it somewhere that it shouldn't be.
While investigations continue, Emma gets a call about another huge waste dump at a site in Thurrock, Essex. She immediately notices similarities and wonders if it could be the same gang.
Access had been gained to an unused piece of land, again had been gained by forcing a gate.
Emma's suspicions are raised even further when she sees the images from a nearby security camera.
I recognise him from the Choates Road site. Have we got any other footage from this site?
We have, yes. There's some nighttime footage.
Oh, so the activity's happening at night as well?
Yes.
The evidence is stacking up. The man in the footage was one of the trio questioned in Barking. Emma now firmly believes it's the same motley crew who are responsible for this latest atrocious incident. Working largely under the cover of darkness, there's signs they're trying harder to cover their tracks this time.
Waste was being deposited from a lorry, and then there was a piece of machinery on site known as a 360, which was burying the material underground.
Emma hits the streets near the location to see if she can find out more about those responsible.
We spoke to local businesses, and our investigation led us to become aware of a letter that had been delivered. The letter informed people that there'd be machinery moving around 24 hours a day for a period of about 3 weeks, and that it shouldn't cause anyone any alarm.
The letter is a clever ruse. It uses a real company's name, but it's entirely fake. Emma contacts the company, who are disgusted that their good name is being used for such unsavoury, illegal activity.
This was a fraudulent letter from a company that these individuals had no involvement with, and it was signed off with a fake name, which helped the gang carry out their illegal dumping and let the offending continue.
Fly tipping hits the public purse hard, costing millions each year to clear up. But when it happens on private land, the landowner has to foot the bill. This is the case at this latest site in Thurrock, where 640 tonnes of stones, rubble, earth, clay and chalk have been dumped, not only damaging the land, but leaving the owner with a clean-up bill of more than £120,000. Emma knows she's dealing with a professional gang of fly tippers, and they soon strike again. Emma's team are working hard when they get wind of another major fly tip.
This incident was slightly different in the sense that we received reports from local residents that there was bales of material present on the site, so it was waste wrapped in plastic packaging. The residents reported foul odours coming from the site, which is what had caused them to take notice of what was happening.
These stinking bales contain rotting food, textiles and nappies. They've been wrapped in black plastic, making it harder to be noticed from a distance and less obvious to passers-by. They may have changed their tactics, but to Emma, it smells like the work of the same gang.
It became obvious at that time we might not be able to link the sites as easily as we had done in previous investigations.
This change of tack throws a spanner in the works of the investigation. But Emma's not giving up. There's no other option but to stake out the area in Waltham Cross to see what they can discover.
We did conduct covert surveillance to assess what was going on, and during those observations we saw a lorry delivering bales of material, which was then being offloaded by a forklift. So when Environment Agency officers visited, we concluded there was around 2,000 bales of material.
The bales are dumped close to houses, and Emma has concerns that the rotting rubbish could attract rats and other rodents, which spread disease. She wants to get to the bottom of what's going on.
I spoke to the landowner, and it turned out that a lease had been taken out for storage and distribution, but no mention of waste material being present on the site. And the landowner wasn't aware that's what the site was going to be used for.
Emma keeps on digging and gets hold of a copy of the lease, where she makes a shocking find.
The lease was taken out by the name we had known at the first site in Choates Road.
It's finally a breakthrough for Emma. The man who's taken out the lease is one of the 3 men questioned at the first location, and now he, like the man identified at the second location, can be tied to another incident of illegal waste dumping. Emma's hoping if her team keep digging, they can find a link to the third man to prove they're all part of the same gang committing multiple crimes. Later, this gang aren't stopping and go to extreme lengths to dump more mountains of waste.
The access to this site had been blocked with large concrete blocks, and we observed a lorry tie straps to the concrete blocks and drag them out of the way.
Except this time, the gang may just have dumped themselves in a lot of trouble. knowing a company is a family business often means we trust it more. However, nothing could be further from the truth in the case of this family business who has specialised in fraud. Private jets and designer clothes. This family were enjoying a millionaire lifestyle, but the public purse was footing the bill.
Once they'd got away with so much and were able to build for themselves such a lifestyle, they probably thought that they were invulnerable.
Mick Randall is a champion in international fraud investigation, with over 23 years of experience in the public and private sectors. He's worked all over the world. There is literally nowhere fraudsters can hide from him. And to understand what's going on in the fraudster's mind is Professor David Cantor, world-renowned for his work exploring offender profiling. Sandbanks in Dorset has the 4th highest land value in the world. The rich and famous have homes here, and so did the successful property developer in this case. He had set up 2 construction companies with his father, who was a retired builder, as director of both. The property developer's girlfriend at the time was also involved in the family business, holding a directorship in one of the companies.
There's nothing unlawful about having family members as directors or secretaries of a family-run business. That's quite normal. In many cases with the small to medium enterprises, the actual director is the owner. The director must be honest and promote the business in the proper way.
The family's companies appear to be thriving, with their tax returns over a 6-year period claiming they've spent £14 million building new houses.
The building of new houses is effectively a tax incentive in the UK. It's 0 rated, so in this case they could claim back from HMRC the VAT.
This means if you build and sell a new house, you can claim all of your VAT back on the building materials and other costs, without having to pay a penny of VAT yourself on the sale. And the family take full advantage of the scheme, to say the least.
In this case, they claim back just under £1 million in VAT.
But their business is built on dodgy foundations.
When a father and son get together to become criminal, they make each other feel that what they're doing is acceptable and valid, and therefore they become much more dangerous and much more adventurous.
With the family submitting such huge claims, the tax authority's VAT repayment task force are alerted to these new kids on the building block.
So we've got some very young companies that have been set up that haven't traded anywhere like they are just about to trade, and there's a huge spike in the tax repayments that are being requested from HMRC. That would have certainly have raised eyebrows. The analytical software would have picked it up, and it would have been enough for the investigators to have a deep look at the company and the individuals involved.
The task force quickly find that far from being successful property developers, there's absolutely no evidence that the family have built any houses at all under either of their companies. A criminal investigation is immediately launched.
This was a hugely audacious fraud. £14 million worth of new builds were being alleged to have been built, and HMRC were being asked to pay back £1 million in repayment. Yet not one brick had been laid. There was no houses. It was a scam from start to finish.
Bank account investigations revealed the only homes this cash was going into was the family's. The son is renting a house on Millionaires Row in Sandbanks. And the family are splashing out on a lavish lifestyle. £40,000 worth of designer clothes, high-performance cars, a speedboat, and a stable full of horses.
And they spent it on all sorts of obvious luxuries and got completely caught up in the whole process of spending their money. And I think they lost sight of the fact of how illegal it was.
This family have been relentlessly stealing vast sums from the public purse, but the fraud team want to bring the house down on them. And now they feel they have the evidence they need to charge the bogus builders.
I think for an investigator, there's never enough evidence. You're always worried that there's going to be some loophole. How much evidence they need to convict is sometimes a very difficult question to answer. They have to make sure that all the avenues of investigation are closed off so that the persons charged have got nowhere to go.
The father and son are arrested, along with the son's now ex-girlfriend. And after a 2-year investigation, the trio appear in court. For her part, the son's former partner pleads guilty and is jailed for 20 months. The son pleads guilty to 2 counts of fraud to obtain payment of VAT credit. And his father pleads guilty to 1 count of acquiring criminal property.
Certainly from an investigation point of view, you'd be thinking job done. Congratulations all round, and hoping that a lot of money would now be paid back to the public.
But to the fraud team's surprise and disgust, the father and son don't turn up for sentencing at Bournemouth Crown Court. Instead, they're sentenced in absentia to 8 years in prison between them, and a warrant is issued for their arrest.
Once they got away with so much and were able to build for themselves such a lifestyle, they probably thought that they were invulnerable and that they'd be able to get away without being found. And is that what criminals do all the time? They convince themselves that they are really above the law and that they will not actually suffer the consequences of their crime.
HMRC's Fraud Investigation Service pledges to pursue the fugitive father and son.
From an investigation point of view, a lot of frustration. You're hoping that you've neared the end. And now the investigation turns from a fraud inquiry to basically a manhunt, of which HMRC are very skilled at doing. So you would then start putting the building blocks in place to locate those individuals and get them arrested.
In this case, one of the chief investigators makes a public plea for help, urging people to phone the fraud hotline if they've any information on the pair's whereabouts.
The fraud perpetrated on HMRC had taken money away from the public purse, stolen from the public in the first place, and so therefore I think it's absolutely right and good that the HMRC, in this case, got the public involved.
With the help of information gained from the public, the tax authority investigators are able to follow the family's trail. The son had escaped to France in a private jet, while his father had less glamorously fled from Portsmouth to Caen by ferry. Both had then made their way to Spain.
Once they get to Spain, they have to say goodbye to the lavish lifestyle that they were leading before they were caught, and they have to live a much more constrained, somewhat secretive existence that makes it far less exciting than many people would believe.
But if the pair think they'll be safe in Spain, they're mistaken.
HMRC, like all law enforcement agencies, are very used to speaking with their foreign partners. And by using letters of request, the different police forces can work together to close in on them. Some of these investigative techniques are obviously covert.
The father and son have run, but in the end, they can't hide. 4 months later, the tax authorities track them down to a luxury villa in Benidorm and waste no time in securing their arrest by Spain's Guardia Civil. The 2 men swap their fancy crash pad for a cell. And shortly after, they appear at the Crown Court via prison video link. The judge adds extra time to each of the men's sentences for breaching bail.
They thought they were above the law and could evade detection by escaping to the Costa Blanca. However, HMRC were robust, didn't give up, They were duly tracked down and arrested and are now serving the sentence they were given in the first place.
And while these two fraudulent family members make a new home for themselves in jail, a Proceeds of Crime Act is being brought against them to reclaim as much money as possible, now and in the future, to pay back into the public purse. In Wrexham, a hospital IT worker has been suspended on suspicion of stealing equipment from the National Health Service. Instead of replacing old computers with modern ones, it looks like he may have been taking the brand new PCs for himself. Now he's going to get a visit from rather different PCs. Detective Sergeant Adam Williams and the CID team at North Wales Police move quickly, hoping they can seize evidence to prove his wrongdoing.
Officers arrived at his home address. He was arrested on suspicion of theft at that point, and a search of his home address was completed. There was a number of items of IT equipment, hard drives, monitors, keyboards, computer towers and laptop computers. Even for someone who worked within IT, there was an unusually large number of computers in his home address.
At Wrexham Police Station, the IT worker is grilled over his treasure trove of tech.
He answered no comment to all questions, and he was completely uncooperative with the investigation at this point.
The suspect is released on bail while further inquiries are carried out. With this computer man clamming up, Adam and the team will have to prove he's crooked.
The next step in the investigation was for us to identify whether the defendant had stolen the computers and how he was getting rid of them.
They then get an anonymous tip-off that blows the case wide open. A letter alleges that the IT worker has been flogging NHS computers online through an auction site.
It is quite detailed for an anonymous tip-off. It provides the manufacturer of the laptops, the online auction site that they've been sold from, as well as a good idea of the quantity that have been taken. At this point, this is only an allegation, but it is a serious one nonetheless.
Adam approaches the auction site directly, and they provide details on the suspect's account and his selling history. He's been a busy boy.
It became quite clear that he'd sold approximately 60 computers over a period of around 4 years. And that was a major find. It was an exorbitantly high number of computers for someone to be selling that wasn't actively involved in selling computer hardware. We believed at that point we'd found some pretty damning evidence against the defendant.
But to prove they're the hospital's computers, Adam has to go through the painstaking process of tracking down all the unsuspecting buyers the IT workers sold them to.
We found the buyers and their details by making inquiries through the online auction site, and then my team had to go about contacting them. The buyers of the computer hardware, when we contacted them, were really shocked, actually, that they were being contacted by the police. There was quite a lot of dismay caused to those individuals that they may have, inadvertently bought stolen computers.
Also, a number of the buyers have since resold the computers themselves. But what Adam can recover from those that still have them are the service tag numbers. This is a code unique to each computer, which allows the manufacturer to tell them where it was made and who it was shipped to.
We received about 36 service tags back from the buyers, and with these we collated them all into a spreadsheet, sent them over to staff within the IT department for them to make inquiries with their supplier and the manufacturer.
It's a breakthrough.
And this then ultimately allowed us to prove that around 28 of the computers belonged to the health board within the hospital.
The police now have enough proof to search the IT workers' PayPal account history and bank records. They show regular, unexplained, large sums of money have been coming in. It's strong evidence. The suspect is asked to attend a second police interview.
I was quite conscious that I didn't want a further no-comment interview. I felt that it wouldn't strengthen our case in any way.
Adam needs the IT worker to confess or incriminate himself so they can press criminal charges. He seeks help from a colleague.
I contacted a specially trained interview advisor who advised me to consider doing something called phase disclosure. So basically, phase disclosure allows us to choose and pick the information we provide during interview at different stages. This often encourages the defendant in a case to talk to us, and then we can present further evidence then that may challenge their original account that they've given to us.
The IT worker arrives. Adam will conduct the interview himself.
This was the first time I'd met the defendant personally during the investigation. He seemed very withdrawn at this point and quite nervous in his disposition.
The interview starts. In the early rounds, Adam, using the technique of phase disclosure, lulls the suspect into a false sense of security.
He was asked a number of questions during the initial phase of the interview, and the disclosure that we'd given to him was very similar to that given on his first arrest.
The suspect visibly relaxes. He might have been expecting newer, more searching questions this time round. Now he may, unsuspectingly, slip into an incriminating answer.
He spoke quite freely with us, stated that the computers he'd taken from work that we'd recovered from his home address were basically deemed beyond economical repair. He ultimately denied selling any computers that he had taken from work.
Adam's grinning inside. The IT worker doesn't know that the investigators have got hard evidence of at least 28 sales of hospital computers that says otherwise.
To get the defendant on record saying that he'd not sold on any of the computers he'd taken was gold for us.
Now Adam hits the suspect with the sucker punch.
In the final stage of disclosure that we gave, we supplied the defendant and his solicitor with information that we'd obtained from the online auction site, his activity and the number of computer hardware items that he'd sold on it. We also provided him with information that we'd obtained from his online banking accounts, showing a large amount of money going through it in a time period.
The IT worker is floored.
He became quite visibly upset and distressed by the information that we'd given to him. He really withdrew into himself. He was on the verge of tears, and it became quite clear to me at this point that we'd got him.
The defendant grimly continues to answer no comment until he's allowed to leave the station. But he's already incriminated himself, and the Crown Prosecution Service charge him with fraud by abuse of position. Yet amazingly, at his first court hearing, he still pleads not guilty.
For me, as a result of that, I thought the defendant was possibly trying to drag out the trial. It's often frustrating in these cases where the strength of the evidence is overwhelming, as it wastes police time, time of the CPS, court time and public money.
Adam and the CID team meticulously bill their case. It's been nearly 3 years since the hospital first realised something was amiss, but finally a date is set for the IT worker's trial. Then at the 11th hour, he suddenly changes his plea to guilty.
It was quite clear at this point the strength of evidence against him was overwhelming, and he was forced to admit this.
At Mould Crown Court, the hospital IT worker is convicted of fraud over a 4-year period and of defrauding the National Health Service of £18,000. When it comes to sentencing, the judge takes a very dim view of this behaviour.
The defence barrister did say that the length of the investigation and the length of time that it was held over the defendant should be used in his favour. That was ultimately dismissed by the judge. He stated that the length of the investigation quite clearly only took so long because the defendant was not willing to take responsibility for his actions.
The fraudster is hit with a hefty sentence and jailed for 20 months. Unsurprisingly, he also loses his job.
Ultimately, it was a solid result, and I hope it sends out a message that all fraud, especially against the public purse, will be treated seriously and those responsible will face the consequences for their actions.
In North and East London, Emma Viner from the Environment Agency is investigating a series of industrial-sized fly tipping incidents. Those responsible are doing it to rake in the cash, but tons and tons of stinking waste is being illegally dumped, costing hundreds of thousands of pounds to clean up and posing a potential health risk to communities and wildlife. Emma believes these incidents are connected and being carried out by the same 3 men. But she's struggling to prove a link between them.
The thing that's a little bit different about this investigation is we can usually link criminality by the way the crime is committed. But with this investigation, it was different on quite a lot of occasions, so burying material at one site, wrapping it in plastic bales at another.
Trying to gather as much information on the 3 suspects as possible, Emma and her team conduct a surveillance operation, tracking a lorry they believe belongs to the gang. They strike lucky.
So the vehicle was followed to a piece of land. It was a building site, and the vehicle was seen to tip a load of what's known as trommel fines on the site. So trommel fines are material that's been through a mechanical treatment process at a waste transfer station.
The environment officers immediately call the police.
And the vehicle was accompanied by a van, which had 2 other males in it, and both the van and the lorry were stopped. 3 individuals were arrested.
And guess who they are? It's the same 3 men, and it's the breakthrough Emma's been waiting for. The trio are interviewed and all answer with no comment. The police seize their mobile phones and send them for analysis. The suspects are released on bail while Emma and her team wait for the results from forensics.
It can take a while to pull all that evidence together and to get a full understanding of what evidence we have against who.
You might expect the suspects would keep their noses clean while they're being investigated, but just a few months later, a location in Rainham, Essex, comes to the team's attention.
We had reports that vehicles were going into this site full of waste and coming back out the site empty.
Scarcely believing it could be the same offenders, Emma launches another covert operation.
The access to this site had been blocked with large concrete blocks to prevent any unauthorised access. And during our surveillance, we observed a lorry tie straps to the concrete blocks and drag them out of the way.
Amazingly, the CCTV shows 2 of the trio that were interviewed by the police. Despite being on bail, both are still involved in illegally dumping huge amounts of waste. Now Emma is convinced she has 2 of the gang members in the bag. She just needs to link them with the 3rd. And just in time, there's a breakthrough with the phone records.
We linked them to a number of sites in East London, out over in Essex and then up towards the home counties. So those phones did confirm there was text messages, phone calls between the individuals. So that allowed us to establish a working relationship, which went to prove the organised network in this offending.
Emma and her team finally believe they have enough evidence to put the 3 men behind bars.
So the key things involved in this case was the CCTV, the surveillance observations, the mobile phone evidence.
After a 2-year investigation, costing the taxpayer thousands of pounds, the trashy trio are finally brought to justice.
The case was heard here at Snaresbrook Crown Court in East London.
All 3 are charged with and found guilty of breaching environmental law.
One defendant was sentenced to 13 months in custody to start serving immediately. Another was sentenced to 12 months in prison to start serving immediately. Another defendant was sentenced to 8 months in prison, suspended for 2 years. He was also instructed to do 200 hours of unpaid work and was put on a curfew.
In an attempt to get back some of the money that's been lost from the public purse, all 3 are also subject to a proceeds of crime order.
Defendants had available assets of just over £200,000 to pay. If that isn't paid within a 3-month time frame, they'll be right back here in court.